Hello guys and welcome to the Los Blancos podcast. Today we will be discussing new centre-back options as well as the Sheriff Tiraspol game and analysing it and where we went wrong in that game, really. So Sean is not with me today, obviously. He had an issue and, he had personal issues and I think that's fine. So hopefully he'll be back for next week. But go drop him a follow on Instagram. His link will be in the description, as of always. Yep, let's get right into the podcast. Okay, so firstly on today's podcast, with just me, we're going to be talking about potential centre-backs for next season. Now, I've gone through a lot of players here, and I've seen quite a lot of interesting picks for this centre-back position. We've obviously sold Sergio Ramos and Rafa Varane, both of them. So it's clear that we need a centre-back next summer to either partner Eder Militao at left centre-back or to partner David Alaba at right centre-back. So, we're looking for multiple different things. We want to look for our longevity in a centre-back. We also want to look for that aggression we need from like a Sergio Ramos type replacement. We need to look for maybe left-footedness or right-footedness, depending on whoever we're going to partner. And we're going to look for that just pure defensive ability to master the centre-back role, like to replace Sergio Ramos. Now, if this was 2 years ago, I would have definitely said Ruben Diaz and Ruben Diaz only, because the leadership that man portrays is just beyond another level. However, Man City ain't going to sell Ruben Diaz, and that's very clear, but that's the level we're going to be looking for, a guy that's just really aggressive, really tough, no nonsense, and he's a leader, he's a real leader at the back, and that's something we need this season, because it's been so defensively unorganised. We need that leader. So, staying in Manchester, and to Ruben Diaz's, he was his expected partner when he first joined, hasn't gone down like that. John Stones is now his defensive partner. We've gone for Aymeric Laporte. Now, that's my first defensive replacement, pick. We're going to think about it and we're going to look at them. I'm going to give each one of these ratings as well out of 10. So we're going to start with Aymeric Laporte. And, Laporte he's fallen out of the pecking order at Man City. John Stones has become the favourite for the centre-back every week, alongside Ruben Diaz, obviously. And Aymeric Laporte in that 18-19 season, he was viewed as the second best centre-back in the league, only behind Virgil van Dijk. And that shows a lot. He is a fantastic centre-back, and there's nothing else to say about him, really, is there? I mean, he is just truly fantastic. I think his ball-playing ability is just fantastic, and it would work so well in Spain. I think that's one of the reasons why it hasn't worked so well in the last few years, because they've used centre-backs just to... They used... the opposition normally use a striker just to burn Laporte for pace. So that's kind of not helped them. But, Laporte is still a fantastic defender, and I think his pure defensive ability, it's among the best in the league. And I think he's just been so inconsistent over the last 2 years. I think, really, he can be one of the best defenders in the world on his day. His day hasn't come along in quite a while, but I think if he went to Real Madrid, he would unlock that. And let's not forget, he has had La Liga experience before. Obviously, he was signed from Athletic Bilbao, one of their youth products from the famous Basque youth academy. So he's a fantastic player, and he's left-footed. So, we're talking about a guy who's potentially going to be a partner for Militao, and he's a bit more of a left-sided ball-playing centre-back. one thing I am a bit concerned about is that he's not aggressive. He's not the aggressive type of centre-back. You can ask him to be a bit more aggressive, but he's not got that natural thing in his play where he'll just do it without you asking. He's not going to do that. He's going to be the more conservative, interceptive centre-back who's just going to be looking to nick the ball here and there. So I think that might cause a bit of concern. And I think the other problem is that he's 27. I mean, let's not forget, we need to look for a long-term partner. If he's just going to be 27, that's guaranteeing at least 3 more years minimum, 3 to maybe 7 if you're lucky. But, we're not talking about long-term. When I'm talking about long-term, I mean, we're talking decade, guaranteed decade-long centre-back partnership with Militao. So, we're not guaranteed that from Laporte, but right here, right now, he's one of the best in the business. So I think 60 million, that's a good price for someone, he's obviously a world-class defender and he's talented, but he hasn't had those world-class performances consistently since the 18-19 season. So maybe that might be a bit of concern. I'm going to slap a 7 out of 10 for this one. I think there are better options. I think there would be better options. But this one, I think he's a very good player. And I think right here, right now, I would definitely not complain. Next option we have is, let me just read it off my list here. Pau Torres. Yeah, we'll do Pau Torres next. And Real Madrid fans have been absolutely crying out loud for Pau Torres for a long time now. I mean, he's obviously another player who's exceptionally talented. I would say he's not as talented as Laporte, in my opinion. But I think what's got him going for him is he's very young. He's 23. But I wouldn't say very young, but he's 23, and he would fit that long-term partner for Militao. One thing I don't like about him is that I think he's not aggressive at all. Whereas with Laporte, you could ask him to be aggressive and put in those dirty challenges. I don't think Pau Torres fits that bill perfectly well, to be honest. I mean, you've got alongside him Raul Albiol, who's just a monster at 34, I think he is. Raul Albiol is a fantastic defender. But I personally don't see Pau Torres as the best centre-back in Villarreal, to be honest. So I just don't think this is the best idea, You need a guy who's going to come in and stamp his mark on Real Madrid immediately and assert his dominance in that team. Pau Torres is not that, and I think ultimately, if we're going to find a centre-back, we need to find a guy who's got a real personality. That iron-willed personality is really, really strong and really dominant. So I think Pau Torres is not that right now. And I think, for other teams, I'm sure he would be fantastic. Barcelona, that would be really good for them, but if they had money. For Man United, he might be okay, but, it's just not that Pau Torres. Pau Torres is just, I just don't think he's the Real Madrid centre-back. And especially if we're going to pay 60 million, I would prefer to buy Laporte over Pau Torres for similar prices. Laporte is better at this current time, and I think he's better than if we get a world-class Laporte, he's better than what Pau Torres could ever be. So I think ultimately, I don't think Pau Torres is our strongest option. What's got him going for me is he's 23 and he could improve dramatically. We don't know that yet, but I don't know about Pau Torres, and I think at this age, 23, it might be a bit of doubt, and I just don't want that. I want a guarantee. We don't want the Militao transfer now. We want the guarantee, and I think Pau Torres is not a guarantee by any stretch of the means. He is Spanish, and that would help, and I think that would help as well. But I just think it's not good enough for Real Madrid now. Why waste the 60 million where you could go for a world-class defender in Aymeric Laporte? So I'm going to give him, I would say 6 or 5. I'm going for 6 or 5. Which one? If I would give him 5.5, but I think I'm slightly going towards the 5 rather than the 6. But I think the 23-year-old, I think that helps him a little bit. I'm going to go for 6, but it's very close to 5. It's on the lower end of 6, definitely. Okay, next up on the list, we've got Jules Koundé. Now, Jules Koundé's, I think he's just a fantastic defender at his age already. I think he's miles ahead of Pau Torres already. I mean, I think Jules Koundé is an extremely skilled defender, but what I think that really hurts him in this list is that he's 5'10", I believe. That's just it's really, really annoying that he's 5'10". If he was a bit taller, maybe 6'2", 6'3", then we'd be looking at a defender that is perfect for Real Madrid. That size, I think, it's a bit dodgy, not going to lie. I mean, I think right centre-back, we're looking at Koundé. I think that's where Militao would prefer to play. It's not looking good for Koundé and whether he would want to go to Real Madrid. I mean, we've got to talk about the Chelsea rumours as well, because it looks extremely close to go to Chelsea next summer, and I think he's perfect for Chelsea because his height differences would be covered by the by the 5-back. So I think really he is perfect for Chelsea, but I don't think he's perfect for us. I do think he's an extremely skilled defender, and I think ability-wise he's probably one of the best on this list. But I think realistically, that height is really hurting me. And as well, Sevilla will be charging a lot to sell to one of their direct rivals. They're going to be asking for the release clause, which is close to 70 million, which is not what I really want to pay for a guy who is not very tall. And I think ultimately, I think he would be a fantastic defender, and I would be very happy if he joined Real Madrid. But I think that height is just it can't be excused for if we play against a team that have got a significant height difference. When you're talking about Militao and Koundé or Koundé and Alaba. Koundé and Alaba would be dreadful if we were against someone with serious height advantages. We would be absolutely aerially beaten constantly, and I think that's what puts him down for a bit. I think, if he had that height, I think it would be 10 out of 10. He would be the main guy on this list. But I think 8 out of 10. I think he's a very, very strong candidate. I think that age is perfect for him, for us. I mean, he's perfect all apart from the height, and I think we've continued talking about that, and I'm sure those rumours are going to be continue until he makes his decision next summer. But yeah, I'm going to give him the 8, and let's move on to the next candidate. Okay, so next on the list, we're going to go for Toni Rüdiger. Now, obviously, he's had a fantastic year last year. He was truly magnificent under Thomas Tuchel, and he was just aggressive. He was covering up Marcos Alonso's flaws, which is obviously his defensive problems, and he was just truly fantastic. And I think what sets him apart from everyone else on this list is that he's got his contract expiring next summer, and that could be truly an excellent piece of business. The only problem is his wages would be extortionate compared to everyone else on this list. We're talking about maybe between 100 and 200k for Koundé, maybe a little bit more for Laporte, around similar for Pau Torres. With Rüdiger, you're probably talking about 300 to 400, and I think that could be really bad. And I think with Rüdiger also, you don't know about his capabilities in a two centre-back formation. We're talking about a guy who's excelled in the 3-back, but he's been poor in previous seasons in a 4-back, and I think ultimately Carlo's not going to be wanting to put wing-backs in and put 5-back in. So I think Rüdiger would be a bit of a dodgy pick because of that. And I'm not sure who you want to be paying for 300 and 400k per week on a guy who's only capable of playing in a 5-back. I just that's put it down for me, I think, a little bit. And I think he's 28, so I think that's going to be a bit more dodgy as well, because you want a guy who's going to be long-term. He's not going to be long-term. let's not forget he is a fantastic player, and he's very aggressive, and he's the exact ability to as Sergio Ramos, the warrior, the strong, the aggressive player that we need. But it's just there's too many doubts about Antonio Rudiger as well. Was like the fact that everyone else on this list previously had played in La Liga before and has La Liga experience. He does not have La Liga experience, so this one a bit scary. I'm gonna go for 5 out of 10. I think for free, he would be an excellent option, but there's still major doubts about him, and I think those major doubts weigh more than the reward we would get from getting him right. So let's move on to our next picks, which would be, these are more of like little maybes rather than the major picks. Okay, next we have Matthijs de Ligt. Now, if you haven't watched Matthijs de Ligt over the last few years, when he's after joined Juventus, you probably say, oh, he hasn't done well in the last few years. And I say that? I say he's been absolutely fantastic for Juventus. He's been, league's second best defender last year behind Christian Romero, personally. I mean, Christian Romero last season was fantastic, and I think we should have gone for him this season. But enough on Christian Romero. He's joined Spurs, obviously. Matthijs de Ligt is an absolute warrior, and he is perfect. He is the perfect replacement for Sergio Ramos. Like, we talk about everyone else on this list. There is no one else that is better. There is no one that is better to replace Sergio Ramos than Matthijs de Ligt. You can't get a guy who's more of a warrior spirit. He's so strong in the tackle. He's aggressive. His ball playing ability is so good. And I think that is why Matthijs de Ligt is, if he was available, which is the main problem, which we'll get onto in a second, if he was available, then he would be top of this list by any stretch of the means. I mean, he's just perfect. But I just think that we're going to be priced out of that move because, first of all, it's Juventus, and Juventus won't want to sell him for anything cheap because it's a centre-back. We've got truly generational talent here, and they're not going to want to be selling him for anything less than what they paid in 2019, which was 75 million. They're not going to be wanting to pay you could get anything less than that. And I think realistically, we're not going to be paying anything more than that, really, because we're going to be going all out for Haaland next summer as well as Mbappe. So I think really Matthijs de Ligt, and also we're going to be dealing with Mino Raiola as well, which is just going to be an absolute nightmare because it's Mino Raiola and no one likes Mino Raiola apart from the players who get absolutely enormous wages. So I think really we should be dealing with a guy who's got a generational talent, and I think if he was worth anything less than 100 million, he would be, I'm going to say it, 9 out of 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10, not 10 out of 10 because of the price. But I'm going to go for 9 out of 10 for this guy because he's out of this world. And I think if you were really going for it, I think if he was a bit less, and I think if Juventus were willing to sell next summer, he would be 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10, no doubt with that. No doubt. If he was over 100 million, I think he would drop down to 7. But I think, this guy is he's truly fantastic. And I think he would be the perfect Ramos replacement. And there's no doubt about that in my head. Okay, lastly, we've gone for one that's a bit of a doubt. And I think we're not going to spend too much time on him. Is Niklas Süle. And I think realistically, he's not going to leave Bayern, is he? But his contract's up at the end of the season. And I think, pace-wise, he's not the quickest. But the guy is just massive. And he's just, if one-on-one, it would be a nightmare trying to play against him. Because he would just, if you try to go around him, he'd just take you down. If you just try to go through him and try and beat him, he would just absolutely just send you. He would just send you. And he would just floor you within a second. And I think That's why Nicolas Sula would be absolutely fantastic. I think if we're going to play a high line, I don't think he would be good at all, but I think he's mastered that high line because of Bayern Munich, and we all know about Bayern Munich's high line. So I think, Nicolas Sula would be a fantastic buy. I don't know who his agent is. Hopefully it's not Mino Raiola. I don't think it would be Mino Raiola, but I think Bayern Munich, we all know how shrewd Bayern Munich can be. I think if they wanted to, they would just say, no, we're not going to offer you that much. Go away. And in the end, they just buy someone else from the Bundesliga in the end. So I think, if he's available at the end of the season, he's definitely not a bad buy. If he's available at the end of the season, I would go for 6, maybe 6 out of 10. I think, because I think that pace ruins him a bit, but I think, he's a good player overall. So that's the end of this section. Next section, we will be discussing the Sheriff Tiraspol game. Oh dear, I'm ready to rip into those players for that. Let's get right into that after this short interval. Okay. The Sheriff Tiraspol game. It was just dreadful. There is no words for it. If you listened to the podcast last week, you know what I said about Sheriff Tiraspol. I said they were a good team. If you underestimated them, they would finish us. Guess what happens? 2-1 Sheriff Tiraspol. Sebastian Thiel, who I pointed out. Who was the other guy? The Uzbek guy. I forgot his name. And it was so frustrating to watch. It wasn't a bad performance by anyone. I wouldn't say it was anyone's fault, that game, but it was just so bad to watch. From minute 1 to 90, you felt like Sheriff had control of that game. We never had control of that game. We felt like every second we lost the ball, oh no, Sheriff are going to counter and score. You've got to expect a team that are going to be clinical. This is a team that's going to be playing Moldovan plumbers every week. They're going to be scoring 7 or 8 every week. And you expect us to give them 4 chances. If you give them 4 chances, they're going to be smashing 5 out of the 4. Like, it's ridiculous. You expect them to be shocking at shooting. No, that's not the case. We're not. They're going to be having free shooting practice every week, because they're going to be sticking 7. They were sticking 7 against their rivals, Dinamo Arto Tiraspol, the week before. That's ridiculous. You truly cannot expect stuff like this. And I think the players were just so bad in that game. The guys they just couldn't finish their dinner. 31 shots. And it took them 3 shots to score. We couldn't score. We had 31 shots, and we had to take a penalty to score. I mean, that we did not deserve to win that game. As much as we dominated the Sheriff with the shots, we did not deserve to win that game purely on the fact that they defended so well. Their goalkeeper, I don't know what his name is. I've never heard of him previously. He turned into Prime Casillas. And how we just kept on stopping the save. He was just so bad. But, word on the players, I'm not going to dawdle too long on this match, because I just can't. It just hurts, man. It just hurts, because at the time, at the minute of the whistle, I just didn't realise how big of this game was, because it is the biggest upset in UCL history, and we can't run away from that. I tried to run away from the fact that it was, but it's not. I cannot run away from that fact. It is the biggest upset in UCL history. You're not talking about Barcelona versus Celtic. You're not talking about us versus Ajax. You might talk about all those, but this is the greatest upset in UCL history, and there's nothing to stop us from getting away from that. It was just shocking. We tried to paint a bad picture. It wasn't a bad performance, and I'll maintain that thing. But what was the formation we were playing at the end? I remember as soon as we scored that goal, Carlo brought in 4 subs. Why are you playing Camavinga at left back? Why are you playing Camavinga at left back? I'm sorry, but you cannot play Camavinga at left back. This guy is the generational talent, and you're playing him at left back. Left back. You're playing Fede Valverde at right back when it clearly did not work against Villarreal on the weekend. What are you doing? I'm sorry, but that's just ridiculous. You've got to be smarter than that. It doesn't take me to realise that. It doesn't take me, an amateur analyst, to realise that playing Camavinga at left back, playing Fede Valverde at right back is not a good idea. It's never going to work. Playing Modric, Kroos, and it's not good. It's not a good idea. Kroos has just come back from an injury. He just couldn't run that game in the midfield. You needed Valverde in the midfield. You couldn't do that. Play Nacho at right back. He played a good game at right back. He missed that sitter, but you play him at right back because he was doing well at right back. You continue the consistency at right back. It was just so bad. You brought in Rodrigo. That miss from Jovic. What are you doing, Jovic? I mean, that was just shocking. If that was Jovic at Frankfurt, he would be eating that every day. Every day of the week, he would be just finishing that, putting that back into the back of the net. What has happened to that man? How is he not finishing that chance? I'm sorry, but there has got to be some sort of call to say that was a bad. That was. There's a guy coming behind you. There was nothing. There was absolutely nothing, and it was just such a limp performance. How we let those goals in. That second goal, it was a fantastic goal, and I won't hide away from that. Sebastian Thiel, well done for that goal. It was just fantastic, but it was just so bad. Benzema couldn't finish for his life. Vinny just tried to create so much. He won the penalty in the end, and he was the only guy who had a bright spark in the game. He was the only one who tried to take on the other team. Why isn't the players our players? And I think we need to find a player who can take on the players, and that's Mbappe. We need to find a guy who will take on the defenders and just run past them and burn them for pace. We are not doing that enough, and I think it just hurts, man. It hurts, and I'm tired of these type of results. We consistently stink it up at the Bernabeu, or at home generally. Last season it was at Shakhtar, the previous season CSKA, Ajax. What are we doing? We constantly stink it up at the Bernabeu or at home in the Champions League. Why do we do this? Constantly we do this. And I just don't understand how we managed to stink it up at the Bernabeu this much when it's against a team that don't have to play against a tough team every minute, every week. They play against plumbers every week. They play against semi-professionals every week. And we managed to play this badly. We didn't play that badly. We managed to not be this clinical against the team that generally do not. This team is built up of majoritively loans. How are you expecting a team to play with such team cohesion when they're majoritively built up of loans? You can't expect that. And suddenly you've built a moment where they can just header it in, and the way they can just volley it in. It was just so easy for them to stick it up. Sebastian Thiel had a good 5 seconds of time there to hit that volley. He didn't have to hit it first time. He could have just done that. He could have taken a few touches, and he could have just picked the spot, and then he could have scored. He had so much space, and it was just so bad. I mean, it was just. You don't need me to tell you this, do you? Because it was just. The analysis of this game, it was not good enough. From minute 1 to 90. And when we go back, that team has given us the kick up the bottom we needed, really, because we have not had that. We saw against Villarreal. If Villarreal were more clinical, they would have won that game. we're against Espanyol. We might have already played that game by the time this podcast is out. I don't know the verdict of that. My God, but Espanyol are a good team. They've got good players, you know. They've got Raul de Tomas. They've got Oscar Melendo. You know, they've got good players. If we ain't careful, they will win that match. And we are suddenly out of breath. We are going to lose. We're going to be out on form. And I think this international break next week has come at such a vital time for us, because we have started to stink up the form, and we have started to play badly. I'm really baffled now. I'm really scared because Atletico beat Barcelona yesterday. I mean, I wanted Barcelona to win. I mean, I didn't want Barcelona to win, but it would have been the best result for us, really, because then Atletico would have dropped out the top four, and we would have had another game week where Atletico would have been bad. But then again, Barcelona win. I just hoped both teams would lose, but unfortunately, football doesn't work like that. But yeah, I mean, it was just, I hope we win against Espanyol. I really do. I mean, we need that win now, because coming into the international break, Vinny's off to Brazil. I think we've got a few players, you know, off to their respective national teams. Hopefully they do well. I mean, when they need that break, we need that break. We need this break, and it could not have come in a better time. So, yeah, I think that's it for today's podcast. Like and subscribe, and follow Sean on Instagram. I'll leave his link in the description, as of always. You know, he couldn't come he couldn't go to the podcast today because he had an issue. Yeah, basically, and I think let's hope for a good win against Espanyol, because my God, these players need it. So thank you guys for listening to the podcast. Like and subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Bye bye.